Hi, I'm Ronnie Burton, and we're here with Will Baggett, Emergent Executives. We're going to talk a little bit about social media, personal branding. This is, I would say, is Will's forte here. You've probably seen him across Twitter and LinkedIn when he's meeting with schools and student athletes talking about this very thing. Will, we're glad to have you on for this.
Hey, Ronnie, man, great to be on this morning with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really looking forward to the conversation today.
Definitely, definitely. Well, speaking of just social media and all these things and just social platforms, I'd say LinkedIn is the biggest one. What should your social platforms or your LinkedIn say about yourself?
Absolutely. So I would say your social platforms should really describe you, right? I mean, it sounds a little cliche or a little bit maybe just kind of just straight to the point here, but they really should just show about who you are, what your experience is. If you're going to start on LinkedIn, I think you have to really understand, okay, what is LinkedIn used for? What are people coming there to get, so to speak? And the thing about it is so many different platforms are so similar nowadays. Like everyone's copying off everyone's papers, Snapchat, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I mean, you can do pretty much all the same things on different platforms, but you have to know where people are looking for different things, right? How the algorithms work, how they can work in your favor. And I think that's very important. So when it comes to your LinkedIn, I think you really want to make sure you have your experience on there that matches your resume, your actual experience. And Ronnie, you brought this up earlier. I think it's very important to have that experience on there and talk about what you actually did. Make sure it's in great chronological order. Make sure you have a great profile picture because you never have a second chance to make a first impression. So when someone sees that profile picture on your LinkedIn, they're making a snap judgment in 4 to 7 seconds or less. It's even less than that when it comes to seeing a picture of someone because they are trying to form an opinion. Okay, what's this person all about? Then they start looking at your experience, seeing what you've done, where you've been. And I think not only your professional experience, what have you done from a volunteer perspective? Because one of the biggest commodities or most precious commodities you have is your time. So what have you done with your time outside of where you're assigned to be in your professional role? I think it's very important.
That's awesome, right? I mean, so much of what you put on LinkedIn is a reflection of yourself. And, also speaking of that reflection, like as a young professional, especially you're a college kid and you're doing a lot of things, what should you be placing? What should you be putting out there on social media? What should you be posting about? I mean, you see a lot of people out there, they claim that they're an expert, but what really gives you that credibility? And I think students sometimes fall into the trap that oh, like I need to post as if I am that expert, but how should they be going about that process of posting and commenting, especially on LinkedIn, Twitter, some of the platforms that a lot of employers are looking at?
Absolutely. So I look at it as if social media, I look at it as an acronym, right? I look at it as an acronym called LIFTS, LIFTS. It lifts you up or it can bring you down. And LIFT stands for the different platforms. It's LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can add TikTok if you want to, still works, and Snapchat, right? Because it lifts you up or brings you down depending on how you use it. So the example I usually use when I'm working with young professionals is I will say, okay, hey, give me your favorite dessert or give me your favorite thing to do. And there's different ways to say the same exact thing. And let's say, for instance, like I like donuts, right? That's my thing, that's my jam, right? And so I would say, like, for instance, on LinkedIn, my skills include eating donuts. That's one of my skills. Instagram, here's a picture of my favorite donut. Facebook, here's 3 paragraphs that no one's gonna read about why I love donuts. On Twitter, you know what? I can really go for a donut right now. Snapchat, you know, remember that donut I had? Well, hey, it's gone now. Same thing, 5 different ways. So you can show who you are. You can be who you are 5 different ways or 6 different ways, depending on the platform that you're using, because people are always looking you up. They're always looking to get an impression of you. They're not going to only focus on your LinkedIn, right? They can find you in other ways. And like if they can find you on Twitter or Facebook or what have you, they're going to look as well to see, okay, this is what you want me to see because LinkedIn is what? It's a professional network. You're expected to be professional, right? That's the expectation. So how can we get below the surface? How can we see beyond that and see what, okay, you're so-called really about, or if there's any kind of differentiation in what you profess to be on LinkedIn versus with the content you put out on other social media platforms. And so I think what you should be posting is things that are important to you, things that are relevant to the sports industry, things that are relevant to what you want to do ultimately in life, commenting on things that are important to you, connecting with people, sending messages when you connect for the first time to say, hey, I'm not just sending this for the kicks. I want to really connect with you. Because on LinkedIn, when you click that blue button, the blue button doesn't say network, it says connect. You have to build a connection before they can truly become a part of your network. They can be a part of your digital network, but they are part of your actual family network, right? Where you can kind of call them up or just give them a shout or reach out to them, in any setting to just see how they're doing. So I think when it comes to social media, LinkedIn or any other platform, is being mindful of what you post, right? Because for instance, on Twitter, you can look to say, okay, maybe 5, 6 years ago, you can look that up just by typing in a simple formula in the search bar on Twitter, and you can easily find what someone has posted, just that quickly, right? So just be mindful of what you post and just understand that things that can be put on social media, things that can be texted, leave them with text, but make sure everything you put out there is essentially part of your cover letter that you're writing. So if you keep that in mind, I think that'll help your social media content.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, thinking about just social media as a whole, I mean, a lot of people look at the tagline, right? Not
Mhm.
necessarily like your mission statement, but it kind of is, right? You can go in and write a little bit about yourself. And speaking of first impressions, what should a young professional, a college student put, within that in order to tell a little bit about themselves? Like you said, it's a snippet, but it really can show who you are. It's almost like a cover letter for yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, different people use different methods. I've seen people say seeking opportunity in sports. I mean, there's one way to do it. I mean, there's even the kind of ribbon now, the open to work, so to speak. But I think you really have to also use LinkedIn to your advantage. There's different, I guess, things you can use, different features within LinkedIn that you can increase your visibility by, just by using that. If you want to invest in LinkedIn Premium, if you have those resources, right? But I really think you want to make sure that you're setting yourself apart by putting there, okay, this is what I'm about, right? And because again, they're just looking, quickly, and there's so many people, there are more people than there are jobs, right? You have to keep that in mind. And so how am I making the most of this opportunity with this, and think about what catches your eye. And I think that's how I kind of try to teach personal branding. If someone caught your eye, if this stuck out to you, do what the good people do what the great people do, right? So what's caught your eye? What made you want to click, right? What's going to be your clickbait? What's going to reel someone in to really want to learn more about you, why you do what you do, and who you are? What do you have to showcase in that, kind of first kind of sentence or headline to really draw someone in? That's what I think is most key and most critical.
All right. Well, I mean, we talked a little bit about just social media and that first impression. LinkedIn, how important is that profile photo? What should you look like? Also, as you know, with Google and when people search your name, sometimes that LinkedIn profile photo is the first thing that they see. What should you look like as a young professional, and what do you want to portray in that?
Absolutely, man. That's a great question. I'll go with the old adage is dress how you want to be addressed, right? You may be, an intern, grad assistant, college student, what have you, but there's nothing wrong with going ahead and getting you a nice little blazer that they got cheap on Amazon, trust me, and throwing that on if you're a male, if you're a female, like I said, wearing a nice, shirt, nice blouse, something that is going to show that you're a professional, right? Because we don't want to use photos that don't really match the kind of professional profile, so to speak. And sometimes it can be hard to get a headshot. You can't afford a headshot. Think about, okay, what kind of professional setting can I set for myself, right? If I buy one of those ring lights off of Amazon and put my phone in it and just sit in my house and put a blazer on, I'm sure by now with Zoom and everything, we're kind of used to, make sure we look good from the top up, So I think that first impression can be overstated on your LinkedIn profile, right? When they see you for the first time, you want to have a nice, nice top on. Make sure you're smiling, looking directly in the camera. Make sure you're not wearing any headgear, anything like that, shades, stuff like that. I mean, I know this stuff is common sense, but you'd be surprised some of the things you see out there. So I think those are definitely some important points to keep in mind when you're putting that profile photo out there, because they're going to look at it and they're going to make their first impression. And people again are looking to weed people out. And these snap judgments are not always fair, but again, it's in the eye of the beholder. And if they have the opportunities, you have to make sure you understand the rules of engagement and what they're looking for.
Oh, definitely. I mean, speaking of that, I mean, I know we're talking a lot about LinkedIn, but this is also about personal branding as well. How do you communicate professionalism, especially today in 2021, both in person, virtually, and how do you kind of go about that process? Because as you know, a lot of interviews now are starting with this virtual component, right? And you have to get to that in-person space. How do you communicate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're starting on social media, you first want to make sure we talked about it, a little bit already, but you want to make sure that you're someone that they can see in their organization, right? You want to talk about fit is the biggest thing. Now, if you're not in person with someone, if you haven't met them face to face or haven't had a chance to see them and how they communicate, it may be difficult to see, okay, do they fit here? Will they be a good fit in this organization, right? That could be kind of tough to unpack. And so again, the first part is making sure you're impressive online and on paper. That's a really, really key point. Secondly, you want to be able to communicate effectively with them by, when you have that virtual opportunity, making sure that you've done your practice runs, making sure you're looking directly into the camera, making sure that you're well dressed, right? And there's this concept called enclothed cognition. And that all that means is what you wear affects how you think and how you move, right? So if you can, you should dress head to toe, right? You should dress head to toe because it's gonna be the same. It will be the same as if you were in person. If you were in person, how would you approach it? You wouldn't have on the sweats and the blazer, right? If you were in person. And one of the things I like to live by is how you do anything is how you do everything. So you want to keep that in mind as well. And you want to make sure you have great lighting, obviously. You want to have a nice clean background, make sure you're on time, or before time. And all these little small details, right? And make sure you don't have, make sure your computer is charged up, all these different things. Like I've seen it all happen. And so you want to make sure you limit as many distractions or as many things that can go wrong as possible. And make sure that when you meet them for the first time, you're smiling, right? That you're happy to be there and that you're engaged with them. I think it's very, very important. Because one thing we all do is we all smile in the same exact language.
Definitely, well, I really like that. Talking about those first impressions, and in my office, we have an HR executive who calls it the mold effect, right? You can't have, proper things on top and then a party on the bottom. And it's amazing, like you say, during this Zoom virtual world, how many people fail to forget that. I actually had one of my bosses in my office said, hey, like, stand up for me. He did it just to see. He's like, hey, just double checking to make sure that you're coming to work, even if you're working from home,
Right.
in business casual type attire, because you never ever know. And that's big.
Right.
Well, kind of moving on, we're talking about personal branding. Personal
Yes.
branding is more than just, like you said, LinkedIn.
Mhm.
It's more than just a first impression. It's almost like you have to curate it, you have to create it. As a young professional and as a college student, how do you kind of take all these different aspects and kind of curate your own personal brand that's true to you and not copying someone else?
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing is consistency. That's the biggest thing. Like for instance, for what I do, I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of different departments across the country, right? I've been so blessed to have these opportunities to work with these student athletes in these colleges. But if you look at, I guess, my marketing, so to speak, it is really not, it doesn't exist. I don't have a marketing department, right? I use Twitter. I use social media to kind of market my business, so to speak, because I engage with people. I treat people right. I always respond to people. Like I share nice graphics and photos, right? So what I sought out to do when I first started presenting or becoming a professional speaker is I wanted to create this brand or curate this brand and say, hey, if anyone is talking about personal branding, career development, professional development, I want to be in the conversation. I want my name to, if it's not number one, that's fine. I got work to do. If I'm number five, that's cool. But I don't want to be not mentioned when I talk about, okay, who are some of the people that are doing it the best when it comes to personal, professional development. And everything I did tied back to that goal. I'll give you an example. I'm going to go a little bit off kilter and come right back. So, for instance, I read an article one time. It talked about Nick Saban, and the article basically was headline. It said Nick Saban isn't into college football. I'm thinking like, wait, what? Like this guy's won, 6 national championships, right? So how can he not be into college football? Well, I read the article. It was clickbait. I clicked it, and I read the article, and it said he's not into college football. He's into competition. That's the difference. He's into competition. Tic tac toe, basketball, Uno, whatever, he's into competition. That's the thing. So you have to understand what is or what are your core values. For me, I had to look at, okay, am I into speaking? No, not really, to be honest with you. Am I into sports? Yes. But more than anything, when I take away all the layers and peel everything back, I'm into human development. That's what I'm into. I'm into human development. Sports is a medium, right? Public speaking is a medium. Writing is a medium through which I activate, right, or I satisfy that need or that itch for human development. So when you peel away all the layers and you see what you're really about, everything you do, everything you share, tweet, post, talk about should tie back to that common theme of what you are truly into. And for me, like I said, that's human development. Figure out what your core four are. Like if you want to be, hey, faith, family, football, human development, what are your core four values? And I think that will help shape your personal brand. And everything that you do before you tweet it, before you hit post or share, you look back at your core four and say, okay, does this tie back to this? If not, it's probably not something I should be sharing publicly, because what you put out for public consumption is open for judgment in the court of public opinion. You have to keep that in mind.
Wow. Well, I mean, you went right back to what I was about to have a follow-up question on is core values. How do core values, play into the first impression and to your brand and what you want, people to portray? Also, I mean, could you go break down just a little bit more for young people? Maybe they haven't thought about their core values. How do you find what your true core values are?
Yeah. What do you spend your most time thinking about? Who do you think about? I'll give you the Nipsey Hussle quote. It says, if you look around your circle of friends and you don't get inspired, you don't have a circle, my friend, you have a cage. So I would first look at the people you spend the most time with, first and foremost. And that'll tell you a lot about your own core values, because, your vibe attracts your tribe, so to speak, right? So look at the people closest to you and see, okay, what are they about? What do they think about? What kind of conversations do we have? What do we, and then also think about, what do you think about in your alone time? When it's just you by yourself and your thoughts, what do you think about? What's important to you? What are your career aspirations? Where do you see yourself, in 5 years, right? And I would think about, where's your treasure, right? What means the most to you? Like, what is something that's a non-negotiable for you? You take this thing away, like, hey, take away everything from me, leave me with this thing, right? Leave me with this thing, this aspect, this family, whatever that thing is for you, right? Again, it differs from person to person. But if you don't know what those things are and you don't prioritize those things, it's going to catch up with you, right? So I would definitely say, understand, first and foremost, who are you? And don't be afraid to ask people, okay, how do I come across? What do you think, I'm good at? What do you think that I value, right? Be able to take some constructive feedback and or criticism, because you're going to tell yourself the very best story to yourself, right? You're going to tell yourself the best version of yourself, not knowing that there could be other things to unpack that could be positive and or not so positive, but they can only serve to help you grow professionally. So that's what I would say, is look around your circle of friends, see what you spend the most time on, see what you spend the most time with, see what you think about and what you spend your time on when you're by yourself, and look at those different things, and that'll help show you what some of your core values are.
Well, this is awesome. I mean, talking about those core values and really know who you are. Like, as we wrap up, I mean, one question that I've gotten during the interview process as it pertains to your own personal brand is, who are you outside of your sport or your job? I think that people underestimate how much that is a part of their own personal brand and their first impression. And in this industry, so many people get tied to the job, the team,
Mhm.
and the organization they work for. Could
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about how you can build a brand outside of sports business, so to speak,
Yeah,
when you're a young professional?
absolutely. A great question. I mean, I've been doing it past, 4 years, because I knew that was something more for me, right? You have to make sure that, if you want to be in this profession, think about, okay, why you want to be in it. Like for me, I mentioned it was human development. Beyond, working in the job, right? You think about this as an athlete. Let's say you're an athlete at a divisional school, what have you, NAI, it doesn't matter, and you transfer to a different school. Well, the name on the front of the jersey is going to change. The name on the back of the jersey is going to stay the same. So when you take away all these different aspects, the logos, the title, all these different things, who are you, as Ronnie mentioned? And so I would say, in my own experience, right, I was working for the collegiate licensing company for a time. I was working there for about 2.5 years. And I was inactive 1 year, and I provided my business card to a couple of gentlemen. Well, I walked away from the table after I connected with him. I came back, the gentlemen were gone, business cards were still lying there, right? And that taught me a lot. Like, wow, okay, these people don't really care about who I am because I don't work at an organization that was attractive to them, so to speak, right? Well, in my following opportunity, working at the college football playoff, never once found one of those business cards lying around anywhere. Never, right? Because it's a prestigious brand, right? People appreciate it. Oh, you work here, you must be this, right? And that causes a halo effect that I may not have even deserved. You understand what I'm saying? I may not even deserve that halo effect, right? Because you even look at some athletes, because they're a great athlete in X, that must mean they're a great person Y. Doesn't always correlate. Does not always correlate. So I think you really have to just look at who you are as a person first and foremost, how you treat people that can't do anything for you whatsoever. Again, how you spend your time. I harp on that a lot. And really just think about, okay, what do I really want to accomplish? Because I can't pass my job down, right? I can't pass that down. I can share what I've learned to my family, or if I have a wife or kids. Think about it like this. I think TJ said it one time, it's not what you leave to people, it's what you leave in them. So think about your job as a platform, as a resource, not the source. You have to think about it as a resource because it provides you with, camaraderie, it provides you with experience, it provides you with a paycheck to take care of yourself, but it's not your ultimate source. And if you want to do things outside of your job, obviously you have to make sure that is not a conflict of interest or anything like that, but also making sure that it's contributing to what you ultimately want to be remembered for, and how you're going to go about it. Like, for instance, we're all three doing something outside of our professional roles, but it's related to it because we care about the next generation and because people helped us get to where we are. So if you want to get what you want, you have to help other people get what they want. And so what we're doing is we're just putting it back in the bucket. We're essentially trying to put our names in the back of someone else's shirts to help sponsor them because other people sponsored us to get to where we are today. So that's what I would say is the most important there, right? You really just understand who you are beyond job, because when you think about this, when Colin Powell once said it, he says, never let your ego get tied to your position, because when your position goes, your ego goes with it. And ego is just ego. It does not say, it's not positive or negative. You can have an inflated ego, but ego is not a negative term in and of itself. It's not negative. Having an inflated ego or having an ego can be seen as that, but you really want to think about, okay, what is my brand tied to? If everything goes away, if I lost everything, who am I going to be? And when someone calls my name, what do they associate that with beyond where I work?
Well, that was unbelievable. I mean, you just tied everything together. I mean, from your LinkedIn to your own personal brand to first impressions, to who you are outside of your job, outside of your vocation. We truly, truly appreciate this. Personal branding here, Will Baggett, Emerging Executives. We really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for providing wisdom, as you say, to the next generation, because our goal is to have all these people who are listening to go farther than we have. And we really appreciate your time.
Absolutely, man. My motto is without support, you don't have a platform. So thank you guys for supporting me and blessing me with this opportunity. I wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thank you, Will.